Varvara Michelle, don't you and Daddy want to go to the neighboring city today to have some canned food and fun, daughter? The girl's brown eyes shone brightly. And here's the news. My always busy father has finally figured out how to give me the maximum of his precious time. Of course, Dad. Well then, I'm going to get ready, Michael said lovingly, watching his daughter rush to her room without further ado. Yes, business didn't allow Michael to be with Michelle as often as he would have liked, but if he had the chance, Michael tried to make the day off remain in the girl's memory forever. They had fun to the fullest and laughed together with Michelle. Michael rode on the carousels until he was dizzy, rowed a boat, and allowed animators to paint him as a new pirate or whoever else. People glanced at the hooligan couple and whispered, "Oh, lucky girl, she has such a fun grandpa." Michael was not offended. What could he do if he had become a dad so late? Before that, he was a veteran of 2 Chechen wars, a retired VDV major, and now a businessman respected by all, Michael Matthew Glazer. He had served the motherland faithfully, practically without leaving the hot spots, and had not wanted his wife to give birth. He was afraid to orphan the kids. Michael met Anna back before the army. He was just a very young guy then. He saw the girl at a dance and fell desperately in love. She didn't even pay attention to him. Why would she need some yesterday's schoolboy when her father was a factory shop superintendent? Micah's parents were simple people. His father worked at that factory, and his mother was a janitor. Suitors who were incomparably cooler than Mike in every way flocked around Anna. But persistence and obstinacy took their toll. He wore out the beauty until she agreed to marry him. Of course, her father was glad for her to finally get a guy, so there was nowhere for her to go. It was love after all. Then Mike was drafted into the army. Anna was left to wait for him, living under her father's roof. After serving, Michael stayed in military service under contract to earn money for their apartment. And then more and more unrest came. At any moment, they could kill Mike. He steadily sent his wife money and sometimes managed to get leave, but she became colder and more indifferent every time. "You'll get killed, and what will I do with a child and pitiful pennies to count?" Anna said, "and no one will marry me as a widow with a kid." After her words, Michael almost hit his wife but held back. She was right. Anna was not ready to become a widow named Sylvia and raise an orphan. Mike's father also wore out his soul with reproaches. Michael was wounded in the leg. Surgeons treated him, but the limp remained for life. While he was in a military hospital, Anna filed for divorce. Michael did not condemn his wife. Anything could happen. Perhaps they were not destined to be together. After being demobilized from the army, Michael Matthew went into a small business. He opened several small shops in his hometown. His army friends helped out with money, and the business started slowly but surely going. Glazer didn't make millions, but had enough to live on bread and butter. It seemed that life was on track, but the major felt lonely and had an unsettled life. A nice woman named Paula worked at his company. She was just as lonely, having parted ways with her alcoholic husband. Michael often glanced at the pretty, calm Paula and wondered how spoiled men were nowadays to trade such a treasure for vodka. At first, Glazer didn't dare get closer acquainted. They had only business relations, and he was 15 years older than Paula. But a woman is a woman. And when he sensed her affection, Michael suggested going to a cafe. Glazer was delighted. He booked a table at a restaurant and courted Paula all evening. Unfortunately, they didn't dance. Michael's limp interfered. He didn't beat around the bush and just blurted out, "Marry me, Polly. If you're not afraid, I'll die before you." She looked at the sturdy, well-built military man who hadn't lost his vigor and sarcastically asked, "And why do you think you'll go to the other world before me? Maybe I'll pass away before you. Shame on you for those words." Michael laughed. And so they became husband and wife. Life with Paula was very good. As a housewife, she was a real treasure. Most importantly, she was gentle and feminine, never raised her voice, never reproached Michael for anything. Of course, various rumors went around the office. They said cunning Polly had wrapped the fool Michael around her finger for pennies, that the awkward guy was now under her heel. Just wait and see how Paula will show him where crayfish spend the winter. But Michael spit on gossip and asked his wife to have a baby as soon as possible. It's just that I can't have children, Mike. I had 2 abortions when I was young and foolish, so God punished me. Paula sadly answered his question. Maybe she was telling the truth, or maybe she lied. Who knows? They decided to adopt a baby from an orphanage, and that's how Michelle appeared in their family, a tiny, skinny little thing with huge brown eyes. She looked 2 years old, although the caregivers assured her she was 5. She just needed care and love. Paula and Michael eagerly began giving Michelle care and love. It turned out they had more than enough of those qualities. The girl grew, developed, and was both smart and mischievous. Glazer remembered those years as the best in his life. Misfortune struck Michael suddenly on a nice winter day. Paula left for an important business meeting and didn't come back. Sometime later, operatives found the woman's car in a river. Her body wasn't found. The slippery road had made the car slide off the bridge. Paula had probably tried to get out, but the undercurrent carried her too far to be found. That she was no longer in this world became not a guess, but a terrible fact. Rescuers searched dozens of kilometers, but helplessly shrugged. The chances for rescue were 0 unless a miracle happened, or it wasn't an accident, and Paula had staged everything on purpose. At the same time Paula disappeared, so did Michael's office manager, Anthony Thompson. Quite a character whom the major couldn't stand. An intriguer and a sly fox. The guy with shifty eyes irritated Glazer, and the accountant Paula had long asked to fire Thompson. But Michael was reluctant, as Anthony was very skilled at negotiating loans with banks, and now he vanished, along with a huge amount of cash. Rumors crawled around the office. Everything was clear without comments from colleagues. Michael both believed and did not believe. He barely organized a funeral, put a jacket in the coffin, and then watched for a long time as the gravediggers covered it with stones of frozen earth. Glazer heard a muffled knock on the coffin lid and shuddered. It was as if they had torn his heart out of his chest, so painful and frightening it was. Little Michelle cried for a whole year, calling for her mom. Exhausted from wandering around an empty house, Michael went into his daughter's room, hugged her, and sang lullabies until she fell asleep, while silently weeping himself. And one persistent thought drilled his mind. How could Paula hate Thompson so much? He didn't regret the money. He wanted to know the truth, and at the same time, he didn't want to know anything. 5 years passed imperceptibly. Michael got used to living alone, while Michelle grew up under the supervision of their housekeeper, Clara Stevenson, a wise elderly woman. She grumbled and scolded, but looked after the household and educated Michelle as if she were the girl's granny. The essence of it was that Glazer traveled around on business trips for weeks and disappeared in alien cities since the growing business demanded attention. Avaria missed her father. Mikhail decided to take her with him on an upcoming trip to a neighboring city, a famous tourist center. The girl jumped for joy. They quickly packed it up and left. Michelle eagerly gaped at churches, ancient monasteries, a white chapel, the cathedral, and 1,000-year-old fortress walls. Everything attracted her attention. Glazer drove slowly, allowing his daughter to admire the beauty of the old city. And suddenly she screamed desperately, "Dad, stop! It's Mom there at the stop!" Michael slammed on the brakes. "Where? What?" "There at the bus stop," Michelle yelled. The man turned around and drove up to the pavilion. A nun sat on a bench, serenely resting her hands on her knees. "Stay in the car, Michelle," he said softly. Michael got out of the car, took a closer look, and was dumbfounded. It was Paula. He crouched down in front of the woman. "Polly, don't you recognize me?" The nun looked at Michael in surprise. "You must be mistaken. I'm not—" Michelle, disobeying her father's order, jumped out of the car and threw herself on the nun's neck. "Mom, Mom, you're alive! I missed you so much!" The woman's face brightened, and her arms embraced the girl. The nun smiled and cried, but these were tears of recognition, tears of joy. She remembered everything. "My dear, my good man, Varvara, how you've grown!" "Oh, Lord. Let's go to my monastery. I have a small hotel there. I need to calm down, say goodbye to Mother Euphrosyne." In the small house by the monastery, it was quiet and cool. 4 people sat in the room, husband and wife with their daughter and a tiny old woman, Mother Euphrosyne, the abbess of God's home. Paula told her everything. "It is the will of God that your family found you. I cannot hold you back if secular life is destined for you, daughter. Your child needs her mother, and we sisters will pray for you day and night," said Euphrosyne in a gentle, pleasant voice that babbled like a brook. "She saved me from death, healed me with herbs," Paula confessed with a bow to the old woman. Then, 5 years ago, Paula began to suspect Thompson of stealing money when the accounts inexplicably didn't add up. All clues led to Anthony's case. Paula realized that Thompson had been successfully embezzling and laundering money for a long time. She cornered him with evidence. Scared of imminent retribution, Anthony promised to return all the money he had hidden in a country house. "Please, without witnesses. I'm begging you." He persuaded Paula to go with him. He knew how to persuade. Paula should have been wary, but she was as if out of her mind when she went out of town. Just before the bridge, Anthony asked Paula to stop the car because car sickness overcame him. Then there was a blow to the head and pitch darkness. "Had you told me this story, I probably wouldn't have believed it," said Euphrosyne, answering Paula's unspoken question. Anthony was nervous, which is why he forgot to close the door. "I don't remember how I got out, but it was winter. I didn't get sucked under the ice by some miracle. I don't know how I found the strength. A healthy man, the driver, pulled the wounded me onto the road and gave me a ride to the hospital, where the doctors diagnosed me with amnesia, caused by a severe blow. Sister Euphrosyne didn't visit me at the hospital, but brought treats, and then took me to her monastery. And so I lived here. I felt good, only my heart ached every day," Paula said softly. "It was the will of God that led me there," continued Euphrosyne. "I was going from the village to the highway to catch a ride to the suburb orphanage. I was escorting humanitarian aid there, and our minibus was waiting for me on the way back from the Arrows. And so it happened that under the bridge I saw someone lying there. Thank God the ice hadn't quite frozen over, and the current threw her onto the bank, right under the pillar. I went to get help, and by the time I came back with the driver, he was a healthy man. He pulled the wounded woman onto the road and gave her a ride to the hospital." Paula said goodbye to the abbess and the other nuns. Mother blessed all 3 and admonished them to live in harmony and not part in grief or joy. "Hold on to each other," said the old woman, making the sign of the cross over Paula, Michael, and Michelle. The Glazers returned to their hometown feeling so happy. Kevin came to live with Michael's family permanently, having become a truly close person to these people. A national all-points bulletin was issued for Thompson. He was quickly found and taken straight from a Pacific Coast resort beach, from which a long prison term awaited him, a well-deserved fate. An excellent young employee, honest and incorruptible, took Anthony's place. Michelle continued in the 5th grade, where she retained her status as a perennial excellent student. Michael and Paula adopted 2 more kids, twin brothers. Now there was chaos every day in the Glazers' big house, as the lively boys turned out to be very noisy and fidgety. Subscribe to our channel and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.